Well, that was mighty nice of you. Mighty neighborly to suffer along with everybody else. You know, misery loves company, right? It's time for us to get started this evening. Let's see if that busts up what's in the lobby there. I hope everyone has had a good week thus far. Some folks had a little bit of a fall break that helps to refresh. Uh, the Larkins are still fall breaking, so hopefully they'll hopefully they'll have a nice, peaceful, safe journey home and end the whole Disney trip that I'm sure everyone has seen the pictures of so far and thought, wow, they're really having a blast. And somehow Glenn pulled his magic trick that, you know, Glenn's with us this evening. So, all right. Well, Hal says that y'all did not get very far with Ecclesiastes chapter 1 last time. However, I did not know that, and Tom had already told me to prepare for chapter 2. So he may go back and do some more of chapter 1 next time. That's completely up to him. But some of chapter 1 goes with what we're doing tonight, so we'll make it work with what we have here. Alrighty. Let everyone get settled a little bit. Before we get started, we're going to ask Roger if he would to lead our minds in prayer. Thank you, sir. Alrighty. So that kind of tells me right off the bat, if y'all only, you said it was just the first two verses of chapter 1 that y'all came back to, first 2 or 3. Well, at least you got the first part of this one. You got chapter 2, and verse 2 in chapter 1. Hey, well, yeah, right. Well, you start off with a verse that we're going to start off with, or with a term that we're going to start off with tonight. Chapter 1 and verse 2, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. So, the word vanity, vanities, and vain occur nearly 40 times in the whole book of Ecclesiastes. Kind of sense a theme with that word, do you not? So let's talk about what that word means. Maybe. Wakey, wakey. All right. The word that we get translated into vain, vanity, and so on comes from the Hebrew word habel. I don't speak Hebrew. That might shock you. If you wanted to look up that word and study further, it's very interesting, and it's Strong's number 1892. It is a noun. It means literally a vapor or a breath. By being translated into vapor, breath, it kind of gives you the idea of something that could be fleeting or elusive. A vapor. Does a vapor last very long? No, that's the whole point. It's kind of there, a little cloud, and it's gone the next moment. It's kind of the idea that we're going with here with what we'll be discussing this evening is the futility of these things that the author of this book is going to discuss. Let's talk about that for a moment too. Given the clues in chapter 1, chapter 2, and some of the flat out statements, a lot of folks believe that this is Solomon who wrote this book. That seems to go with a lot of the clues, like we have the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, and especially here when we start talking about some of the aspects of what he is studying and what he talks about in chapter 2 really go along with that idea. So let's start off. We're going to split this chapter into 3 portions. We're going to start with verses 1 through 11, if you'd like to follow along in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. And I will read that selection. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself, but behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works, I built houses, I planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks, and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves, and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold, and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure. For my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity, a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. Okay, so our first section here, we kind of see an experiment in chasing after what makes someone happy, what kind of things would make someone happy, earthly, material things. You have ever heard the phrase, if you want to do something, do whatever makes you happy, or let happiness be your guide? Does happiness often turn out to be a lousy guide if you're just pursuing what makes you feel good in the moment? Don't get me wrong, happiness is excellent. Happiness is a good thing, but the mindless pursuit of pleasure and happiness, that leaves a lot to be desired as far as what we are capable of doing for others. That can lead to a selfish nature. So, and this is a question out for discussion, what is wrong with pleasure? Who can tell me something that's wrong with pleasure? Is pleasure in of itself wrong? No. When does pleasure become wrong? Kind of already alluded to it. Yeah. Right. When it consumes you, when it becomes an idol for you, when it becomes the only thing, like you said, the only thing you think of, and you push out everything else that's good, right? It becomes self-indulgent, self-centered pursuit, and that's where it becomes wrong. Pleasure alone is short-lived and superficial and does not give us meaning or value. The author explores many different things in an effort to find meaning in life. He enjoyed many different pleasures and wealth, and he undertook great achievements. And if you'll notice, another reoccurring theme in this is I, me, all over the place, right? I did these things, I did these things. And that's going to culminate to our answer to why this person is not finding happiness, not finding and not content here at the end. But he concluded that while these things might bring temporary enjoyment, the results do not last. As a whole, the Bible teaches that life's meaning can be found in an ongoing, vital relationship with God. Let's look at Acts, book of Acts, chapter 20. Acts 20 and verse 24 says, "But I do not account my life for any value, nor as precious to myself, if only I may finish my course and the ministry that I have received from the Lord Jesus to testify to the gospel of the grace of God." And then, likewise, to kind of re-emphasize that vital relationship that we have with God, let's look also at 2 Corinthians chapter 4. This is something that is evidently missing, obviously missing, from these first 11 verses. It's kind of almost a self-worship kind of thing. I made this, I did this. No mention of God and what he has done for him. And 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 and 18. "So we do not lose heart, though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison." So the focus here is solely on material goods and the pursuit of things that we can, quote unquote, get ourselves. Now, I know good well that everything comes from God, that our resources to get those things comes from God, and it's only by his power that we are able to do these things and have these things. But what you're throwing out in pursuing these things and not pursuing that relationship that is vital with God is that you have a chance for glory beyond all comparison. You're laying up your treasures here where moth and rust can destroy. You're putting all your eggs in one big single solitary basket that's not going to go with you when you die. And that's not how we're directed to live. And that's what he is coming to realization as far as material goods and earthly goods go. Does anyone have anything to add to the first 11 verses that we've discussed so far? All right, if not, we'll move along. The vanity of living wisely. Now this this one coincides with some of chapter 1 towards the end, which I was under the impression that y'all had done, and you haven't. So it kind of works well with that. But like I said, if Tom wants to go back and do those, that's his prerogative, I guess. But with that being said, we don't have that base. No big deal. Most of y'all have already done a study on Ecclesiastes 2, and probably even read this in preparation for class tonight. So let's turn back to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. And we will read verses 12 through 17. "So I turn to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly. as there is more gain in light than in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this also is vanity. For of the wise, as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me. For all is vanity and a striving after wind. And there's that phrase again. Striving after wind. What is the significance of that phrase? Striving after the wind. Right. Jimmy? No. You can have a ship with a sail. You can sort of catch wind, right? We're not exactly getting a large portion of it. But you get the idea, catching air. It's an exercise of utility, which is the whole theme of this chapter and a lot of this book, comparing what is worth pursuing versus what is not worth pursuing. So we're talking now about we're shifting kind of from the tangible, from the physical things, gold, silver, gardens, property. Now we're moving into what is stated as wisdom, but he doesn't stop there, and madness and folly. Okay? So, why did the author consider madness and folly, do you think? I mean, chances are we're talking about Solomon here, who is known for his wisdom, right? So, why would we also be talking about madness and folly? Yeah. Yeah. Right. And do you think maybe when you're desperate in pursuit of trying to find an answer for something, sometimes what your intuition tells you might help, sometimes you try something else when that doesn't work. And so Solomon, in his wisdom, maybe he thought, hey, I've got this wisdom, I'm wise, what is there in any loss in pursuing this madness and this folly? Oh, you're good. Yes, sir. Should. Right. Ignorant to the whole thing, right? Yeah. Ruby, did you have? It left you like trying to catch the wind, right? Yeah. I got you. Well, if it blows through again, let us know. All right, so the author intended to explore everything under the sun, as stated in this selection. He determined to consider all options, to leave no stone unturned in his search for meaning. If he could not find life's purpose in the highest forms of wisdom, he would consider the other extremes, like we were just discussing, folly and even insanity. His conclusion: life's meaning is found in neither wisdom nor insanity. As Jimmy was saying, even the wise are going to pass away one day, and then what good is that knowledge that's been built up? The madness, those who thrive in folly, that'll all end one day, and then what good has that been? Mm-hmm. Yeah. strive goes right. Yeah. Hmm. Right. Yeah. Or it drove him mad striving after. Listen, that first list and the first 11 verses of all that stuff he built and had and did, that's a lot of striving right there. That seems like a lot of work to me, unless he's just having other people do it. But still, having to deal with all those things. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely seems to be a component of work there in the word strive. Well, of course, that's what he's after here. Is he's striving for happiness, and it's all turning out to be in vain. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, a little bit of haughtiness to him in it. Right, right. That's almost like a desperation, almost like you know, it's kind of counterintuitive to what a haughty spirit, a puffed up spirit would have. You get desperate and you try something that you wouldn't necessarily try otherwise. Yes, sir. Yeah. No. Right. How does the precisely, and that's mostly how our world operates today, is it not? Whatever I can do, whatever I can build up for me while I'm on this earth, the more gold-plated things I have, the better off I am. Um, that's that's just how our world spins in a worldview. Um, but that is not what the way we are to be. Hmm. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Right. So, and that's exactly what my next question is going to be. Are the wise no better than fools? Um, while the author acknowledges that wisdom has its advantages over folly in verse 13, he was looking for more. He was looking for life's ultimate meaning. To this way of thinking, wisdom cannot provide meaning for life because death brought wisdom to an end. The author believed death made everything in life insignificant. His understanding was limited, though. He could not have foreseen that Jesus would triumph over death so we might live forever. Why is that? Because this is before that it transpired, right? So he wouldn't have that foreknowledge. He was not necessarily a prophet. Let's turn to 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2, read verse 24. He himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. Let's see. And this is this is the zoom out to the big picture that we have today, that we know that Jesus came to this earth, lived as a man, died as a perfect sacrifice. Solomon, who is most likely the author of this, he wouldn't have had that knowledge, right? It's easy to speculate and easy to say maybe, but I think it's not too far of a step out. If he had had that knowledge, maybe it would have directed him towards what we know. But then again, how many people know what we know about Jesus today and still act like Solomon did and strive for putting up all these things, all these physical things, strive for wisdom, spend their life in pursuit of knowledge. Pursuing knowledge is not a bad thing. It's just like with the pleasure. It's when it becomes your life and it becomes your idol, and you push everything else out. So I'm not anti-knowledge by any stretch. um, all right. So, what does someone gain by being wise?
Verse 15 from the New King James says, "So it said the hard headed Baptist, but you will also have to lead."
Hmm.
Follows up both ways.
Right. So what's the point? Yeah. Yeah. All right. So wisdom enables a person to work comfortably within human limitations, while ignorance compels people to rebel against limitations and make choices that harm themselves and others. The author emphasizes that both the wise and the fool must eventually die, as we've reiterated with Hal up here, and both will be forgotten. Let's all turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 1. And take a look at verses 18 through 25. Okay, good. That's bigger than I thought it was going to be. I never can gauge that just right. Either I get the font too small or the contrast is off. You can't read it. But anyway, 18 through 25. For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the discernment of the discerning I will thwart. Where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of the age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world did not know God through wisdom, it pleased God through the folly of what we preach to save those who believe. For Jews demand signs, and Greeks seek wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and folly to Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. So it's all about what we're pursuing. Again, as stated earlier, we can go after every book that's ever been printed in this world and seek, school after school of knowledge, of thought. But does that even begin to grasp what is known to our God? Ma'am. Yeah. Hindsight's 2020. Yep. Ah, right. For something he has no control of once he's dead, right? And yeah, that's exactly. We'll definitely dive off into that here in just a moment. You've definitely gone in the right direction for the rest of this. Yes, sir.
He's not saying that what he's saying here is what he's saying. What he's saying is not, I don't know how to say this. The Holy Spirit's not telling him to say what he's saying. He's saying what he believes. The Holy Spirit is saying in his book.
And that's kind of, yeah.
And he's not saying that a wise man is bad and foolish. He's not a wise man. He's no better than a foolish man.
Right.
Because he's going to make better choice. And that don't mean he's going to make the right choice. At least he's wise to make better choices. Should be.
Right.
And foolish men make everything better.
Right. Ignorance compels people to rebel against limitations. uh, that are placed on us on this earth. So, yeah, and most of this goes back to, it's kind of almost like, and when I started studying this again for tonight, kind of one of the commentaries that I read kind of had like an approach to where, you know, this is Solomon or whoever the author may be, which is most likely Solomon or one of his scribes or whatever. But kind of like an experiment, kind of like keep trying stuff until it works. So you have a lab, you have some kind of test you're trying to run. What do? You just do it once and it works and you're done and you go patent it and make a lot of money? No. You keep trying things. More often than not, you're going to fail the first time, the first dozen times, the first 752 times, and then it happens. But that's almost, that commentary that I can't remember which one it was, but that commentary kind of presented it like that, kind of like this writer is experimenting with how to obtain this happiness in this pursuit. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Where's their faith? Where's their faith? It's in themselves, right?
Solomon was alienated from God at this time. He was
Right.
in a good relationship with his heaven said.
Yeah.
The wisdom that we need to have, and everybody needs to have, comes from God.
It's not something we can go and obtain. That's not something we can go and purchase or, yeah. Oh, yeah. Tom.
The wisdom of God, if we go along with what God is saying and obey what God is saying, and put it to our heart to apply, then through that we learn that there is obedience and submission to Christ through our humility.
Bingo.
That's where that discerns those in the world. I'm amazed when I watch these images of Webb,
James Webb Telescope.
goes back,
Yeah.
and then they tell me on television what all this is.
Right. You mean you didn't know that right off the top of your head?
But I'm amazed. I said, well, how do they figure all this out?
Right.
They learned themselves that the Big Bang may be not the Big Bang.
Well, yeah.
Hopefully they'll admit that. The real Big Bang started in Genesis 1. The real Big Bang.
Right.
But anyway, Jesus said, if I can lift it up, I will draw all men unto me. But what is that? That's submission to Christ.
Right.
He will not draw men to him if they don't want to be drawn.
Correct.
They have to submit and be humble before God.
And how hard, there's the word I was after again that you already said, humble, humility. That seems to be lacking in this scenario, does it not? How much easier a time would he have had if he hadn't, had the faith in himself that I can make these things, I can do these things, I can obtain these things. Just a little bit of humility. How does that apply to us today? I mean, it's easy to, you're an expert in your field, you've been in there for 30 years, you know what you're doing. Can't nobody tell you anything. How hard is it to humble yourself and to realize that, wow, there's other people I can learn things from and better myself, which is what we should always be doing in every aspect of our life. But to realize, to be brought down and humble enough to realize that the world's spinning with you on it. It's not rotating around you like you'd like it to be. But humility. That would have gone a long way in this whole story. But anyway, let's, good points. I appreciate everyone's feedback. It's very helpful so far. Let's move to the vanity of toil. Well, if, just as we did with the wisdom, if madness and folly are opposites to the wisdom, why not a little bit of toil, right? I mean, now we're just throwing things to see if they'll stick. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 18 through 26. I hated all my toil in which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me, and who knows whether he will be wise or a fool. Yet he will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labors under the sun, because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. And we've already mentioned that aspect. This also is vanity and a great evil. What has a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night his heart does not rest. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God, for apart from him who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him God has given him wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vanity and a striving after the wind. And this is our third and final pursuit of the wind here in chapter 2. All right. So what brings contentment? Have we finally started to strike on some usable stuff in this section of chapter 2, this final stretch? There's some realizations being made, is there not? It seems like at least maybe a little bit. There's at least a mention of God now. We're not near as concerned about what I can do and what I have put up on this earth and what I've accomplished. So what brings contentment? Concluding that happiness is not found in the pursuit of worldly pleasures or wisdom, the author advised taking comfort in daily comforts. Eat, drink, and be merry. He seems to say, do whatever God enables you to do. People often find that simple pleasures fail to satisfy them. A better answer comes in the conclusion of the book. Contentment comes through a life of faith and obedience. So we're going to skip ahead to Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Don't tell Tom, I don't want to get in trouble. But if he jumped around from, 18 back to 1 last week, I get one freebie. Let's look at chapter 12, the book of Ecclesiastes, verse 13. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So, let's jog on back to 2 and the final verse of the chapter, verse 26, chapter 2 of Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and verse 26. And that's, there we go. So what is the sinner's task? All right, so let's read verse 26. To the sinner he has given the business, or the task, of gathering and collecting, only to give only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vanity and striving for the wind. So, the sinner who strives to accumulate wealth is destined to futility, for someone else eventually will get his wealth. If not soon, then certainly when death comes. So, when you have accumulated all these things and you've got all this stuff, who's it go to when you die? Most of us in here, it would go to our children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever family might still be living around us. It would go to our family. But for someone, but the bottom line is it goes to someone else. You don't take it with you. You don't take those things that you've laid up here. You better have laid up your treasures somewhere much more secure and much more meaningful than the tangible things of this earth. All right, so this theme is common in Old Testament wisdom literature. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 11 for a parallel line of thinking here. Proverbs 11, verses 4 through 7. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteousness of the blameless keeps his way straight, but the wicked falls by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright delivers, but the treacherous. When the wicked dies, his hope will perish, and the expectation of wealth perishes too. And one more. Proverbs chapter 13, verses 21 and 22. Disaster pursues sinners, but the righteous are rewarded with good. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. So it ends up going away, and you have no control of it once you're dead. So all of that was, again, an exercise in futility. All right, so, sir. Right. Okay, yeah. Well, you kind of get that. Everybody remembers being a teenager, right? It's a little more recent for some of us than some others. I won't get into that. But what all did you know when you were a teenager? Well, but you could probably honestly put it in a mason jar at best, right? I mean, not that you're puffed up and, I'm so much wiser now than I was when I was a teenager, but there's some experience and some wisdom that comes along with living all these years, right? That's kind of the flavor of the attitude, like what you were saying, Hal, of kind of the speech, I can do this, I've got this, my hope is built up in me, I've got faith in me, just all that zeal, rip-roaring and ready to go. The older we get, slow down a little bit, right? That's part of that's wisdom. You hurt yourself. And then you go on a retreat with the teenagers and you end up belly first on a skateboard. Some of you may have seen that video. I got talked into it. I didn't want to do it, but I enabled them. But anyway, that's one of those things that was a bit easier for me to do at 18 than it is now at twice that. So, but that's kind of the air that you get in the writing style of Ecclesiastes. So, pursuing God and his teachings must be above our heart's desires, our own personal gain and self-interest. Seeking earthly power or recognition over God is not a godly pursuit. I deserve some pleasure. I've worked so hard. That's a dangerous thought, is it not? How easy is it to stay in that mode? How hard is it to come back to caring for other people, doing for other people and trying to help others. You get sucked into being selfish. The end result of a life pursuing selfishness, the harsh realization that it was all for nothing and a total waste. All right. Well, I appreciate your attention and your discussion this evening. And thank you very much.
124. 124. The song is entitled, Bring Christ Your Broken Life. I don't know all, but I know a few of the people here tonight that are really good about fixing things. You can take things that are broken. You can take things that are messed up. You can take things that are not working, and you just have that knack. You have that ability. You have that gift. I don't have that gift. I envy people that do have that gift. But isn't it great that we have repairmen? Isn't it great that we have people that can fix things when they get broke, when they're torn up, when they're not working, when they're not functional? But there's nobody here tonight that can fix a broken heart, that can fix a broken life, because that's beyond us. But Jesus Christ can. And so many times when things are broken, when they're messed up, even if we can't get them fixed, we can get them replaced. A large part of life, or the things in life, can be replaced. You can get a new one. You can get a refurbished one. Life doesn't work that way. It's only through Jesus Christ that He can fix, that He can repair, that He can make new again. It's in the letter to the Corinthians. It's the second letter, chapter 5, that Paul talks about if we are in Christ, we're a new creature, really a new creation. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things become new. Medical technology is awesome in so many ways. Knee replacements, hip replacements, elbow replacements, shoulder replacements, hearts. Almost everything out there can be replaced, and to some degree made better than it was before. But the spiritual heart can only be fixed by Jesus. And aren't you glad it can? There's a couple times that obviously can happen. Obviously, number one, when we become a Christian, when we're buried with Christ in baptism, we're a new creation. Old things are passed away. All things become new. For those that are children of God tonight, you remember that time. You remember how good it felt to be so clean, so pure. Every sin washed away, every sin done away with, as pure as a snowflake were we before God. But unfortunately, even after we become children of God, we sin, we mess up. Sometimes we let our lives get in a mess. Sometimes we let it get in a spiritual wreck. Sometimes we let it get broken to the point we almost forget what it seemed like before. What it seemed like that day that all of our old was washed away and we became new. Promised by God is that even then, even after we become children of God, if we get in that mess, if we get broken again, He can heal us. He can fix us. If we confess our faults one to another and pray one for another, the effectual fervent prayer of the righteous avails much. If you're here tonight and you need to bring to Jesus your broken heart, your broken life, He can fix it. He can repair it. He can make it new again. If you need to do that initially to become a child of God, everything that was in the past will be cast into the depths of the sea. Maybe you're a child of God and you've let your life get in a mess. You've let your life get in a state of brokenness. It's hard to pray, hard to sing, hard to live, hard just to function because you know what you're missing. Why not let Jesus, the great physician, fix that tonight? It's a matter that you need prayers, we'll pray with you. We'll pray for you. We'll encourage you. We'll hug your neck. We'll do everything that we can to support that effort. If you need to come to Jesus tonight with your broken heart, with your broken life, please do that as we stand and sing together.
bring Christ the broken life, so marked by sin, He will create you, make whole again your empty, wasted years. He will restore, and your iniquities remember no more. Blessed Savior of us all, Almighty friend, His presence shall be ours unto the end. Without Him life would be how dark, how drear, but with Him morning breaks and heaven is
Glad you're here tonight for visiting. We're certainly glad that you came. Remember Briar Tate in your prayers. She's not feeling well tonight. Also, Robert has a great aunt, Violet Dickerson, that's having some health issues. Also, a member of Cecilia Henry, teacher, number 31, that passed away. Remember that family. Tom Carey, Larry Lott, to Birmingham today to have a procedure done about some precancerous cell therapy. Larry, in your prayers. Look. Coach Drive in your prayers and your thoughts. Continue to need hope for that November the 12th, the time of the giving goes away. Self-esteem.
Yeah, closing song number 832. We're going to sing one stanza, and then Caleb will lead us in our closing prayer. Thank you, Lord. All right, let's sing. Oh, Christian, do not hide your light, for ye are the light of the world. But keep it trimmed and burning bright, for ye are the light of the world. For ye are the light of the world. For ye are the light of the world. Then keep your lamps all burning bright, for ye are the light of the world.
Bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity you gave us to come together and spend time with fellow brothers and sisters in Christ and dedicate a time in our week to study and dig deeper into your word. Please let us take what we've learned tonight and go out and apply it to our lives and be the examples we need to be. Be with all of us as we go throughout the rest of the night and the rest of the week. Please help us be Christians outside these walls. In Christ's name, amen.